I remember working as an executive for a global data analytics company. And it was right after our annual sales meeting, and I was talking to a couple of my colleagues. And I asked them an important question. What do you think your employees are motivated by? And they said three things: money, incentives, and time off. Sounds about right, right? But I told them there's something that I know that is much more powerful than that, and I can prove it. They said, okay, Rodney, tell us what it is and prove it to us. I said, okay, follow along with me. Close your eyes. I said, I want you to think about the most important person in your life. This person could be a parent, a spouse, a minister, a coach, or someone else. But the key factor here is that this person touched you in a way that no one else has ever touched you before. And they're instrumental in the person that you've become today. Now open your eyes. I said, now show of hands. How many of you all have someone in mind? Okay. And they all raise their hands. I said, now let me ask you this. Do you feel this way about this person because they gave you money, incentives, or time off? No. You see, you feel this way about this person because they touched you, because you value them. So why am I sharing this story with you today? That's because I believe that our leadership is in a crisis. And the solution here is to lead with clearly defined values and not just skill sets. I'm going to share more about this a little later on, but for right now, I need you to know something. 44 million Americans quit their jobs last year, and workplace participation is declining. 1 in 9 men of prime working age are not working today. Now that compares to 1 in 50 7 decades ago. And women, they're exiting the corporate world in droves. You see, these statistics point to a much deeper rooted issue. Our approach, ladies and gentlemen, to leadership is broken. And I believe that the solution is to lead with clearly defined values. Now, let me share with you how some of my more prominent values began. I started off as a telephone sales rep in Towson, Maryland, working for one of the largest telecommunication companies in the world. And I would work my way all the way up to a chief operating officer for a financial firm right here in Houston, Texas. And in that time period, I came across some phenomenal leaders, but I met some awful ones too. Now, my very first lesson on leadership, that would come from my father, my very first leader. But unfortunately, it was a harsh lesson on how not to lead. It would become one of the most disrespectful moments of my life. But let me take you back to 1994, where I would utilize that same lesson for the greater good. I was an up-and-coming manager. I had 5 supervisors under my direction, and I was coaching this one particular supervisor, gentleman named Claude. Now, Claude was a type of individual that felt like his way was the only way to do things. You know, you can coach them and they'll nod yes. You know the type, but then they'll go off and they'll do their own thing, right? That was Claude being Claude. And so I was coaching Claude on how his people did not really like him. They didn't care for him as a person, as a leader. And he would get better performance out of them if they did. But Claude being Claude, Claude disagreed with me. You see, there's a 2023 Forbes article written by Lisbeth van der Linden, where she states, leadership is not just about our skill sets and our experience, but it's intertwined with our values, because those values are the fabric of how decisions are made. And those decisions are made throughout the team that we permeate. You see, even back in 1994, I knew that there was a disconnect between Claude's leadership, his values, and his team. But Claude being Claude, Claude didn't see it that way. And so I said to Claude, I said, you know what? I bet you if I did an assessment and compared how much your people care about you versus your peers, you would rank at the bottom. Claude said, no, not me. So we decided to take on this experiment, right? And so the parameters were simple. I would evaluate each of my supervisors in 4 essential value-driven areas: love, trust, honesty, and respect. And then I also threw in a caveat, right? Any rating outside of mediocre for any one of those 4, they had to give a specific example to validate their point. When the results were in, Claude ranked at the bottom with some of the most harsh things you'd ever want to hear. And when I shared this with him, he was devastated, but he could not argue with the facts. Now, when I discovered this, I started to take those 4 essential values of love, trust, honesty, and respect, and I started to teach them throughout the corporate world, wherever I went, making sure that people understand or understood just how those values were essential when it comes to our leadership and what people are truly motivated by. Earlier this year, leadership guru John C. Maxwell addressed an audience at Columbia International University, and he stated to the audience, high road leaders value others. Mid-road leaders seek value from others, but low-road leaders, they devalue others. And so the solution is simple. It's leading with these 4 essential values of love, trust, honesty, and respect. Love is essentially taking care of your people and really getting to know them. Write down 5 characteristics of each of your direct reports. And if you cannot do that, you got a lot of work to do. Build trust by doing 3 simple things: being sincere, being knowledgeable of what you're talking about, and being reliable. Follow that up with being honest at every turn. And then last but certainly not least, treat everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of position or title. You see, if we do these things, we will make this transition in our leadership from skill sets to values, and our world and our workplaces will be a better place. But you see, that's not where it ends. It doesn't end there. No. These 4 essential values of love, trust, honesty, and respect, they also lead to what I call the ultimate fulfillment. Let me share this last story with you about a friend and a colleague of mine named Lee. Now, Lee is the type of individual who is, he's an injustice equalizer, always looking to make things fair and make things right. We kind of coined him as our Captain America of the group. Well, when Lee was promoted to director, Lee and his management team decided on a goal of winning the top center award at this particular location because he was in charge of 700 employees. And it was one of the most complex locations in the company. Well, 2 weeks into the job, Lee and his colleagues were headed into a conference room before a strategy session. What they noticed were the lights off and a group of employees in the conference room praying. One of Lee's direct reports shouted out, "They can't do that. That's against the company policy. We got to stop them." Lee said, "No, we will not interrupt them." Well, when the employees exited the conference room, they had to walk through a gauntlet of managers that were looking to enter the conference room. And Lee noticed something: their facial expressions, their body disposition. They were scared. They were afraid. They didn't know what was going to happen to them. And so Lee stepped forward and he said, "I don't want you guys to worry about this. Please just go back and finish your shift. I'm going to come talk to you later on, but don't worry about this, guys." And so later on in the day, Lee thought about how unjust he felt like the company policy was. And he said, "I'm going to let you guys pray in this conference room anytime you want." Well, several months later, Lee, his management team, his office, they went on to win that elusive Top Center award, not 1, but for 2 consecutive quarters. He was so proud. But you see, the story doesn't end there. You see, when Lee allowed those associates to pray in that conference room, one of those individuals, a gentleman named Mohammed, would stop by Lee's office every now and then to chit-chat with him. And on one of these days, Muhammad stopped by Lee's office and he said, "Mr. Lee, you don't even know why we won that top center award, do you?" He said, "Of course I do. We set goals and you guys did an outstanding job of going out and accomplishing the goals. That's why we won." Muhammad looked at Lee. "That's not why we won that award." He said, "Remember that first time you allowed us to pray in the conference room? Well, later on in the week, that Friday night, we got together in our community. And we said, 'Mr. Lee, you are the only director to ever allow us to pray in our workplace. Been here for 9 years. We're going to do everything in our power to make you, Mr. Lee, as successful as possible.'" At that moment, Lee felt it right in the pit of his heart. And with tears in his eyes, he started looking through the reports and the metrics and analyzing the percentages of increases by the employees. And he noticed that Mohammed was right. You see, Lee, he cared for them. He built trust with them. He was honest with them. But most importantly, he respected their religion and their culture, even though it was not his own. What this story taught me was that our values are paramount, especially when it comes to the decisions we have to make. And moreover, when there's conflict involved, it's even worse. So what I say to you today, make these 4 essential values of love, trust, honesty, and respect a part of your work life in your everyday life going forward. And lastly, let me leave you guys with this short poem that I wrote. When we step into a leadership position, we are responsible for the lives that we lead. Our followers are hungry and thirsty. They're starving for our development and our coaching, and they're looking to us to feed. Sometimes life is going to get the best of them, and they're going to come to us scared, timid, and afraid. But we should never forget that when we first became their leader and they started following us, their debt to us they already paid. You see, leadership is not a right, it's a privilege that we must all uphold and protect. And if we should ever lose our way, go back to building loyalty with people, because it starts with love, trust, honesty, and respect. Thank you.